Let me introduce the first speaker. Father Zbigniew Kubacki is a Polish Jesuit. He teaches systematic theology and theology of religions in Collegium Bobolanum here in Warsaw. He is also a member of the Committee for Dialogue with the Non-Christian Religions of the Polish Bishops' Conference. The title of his paper today is The Reception of the Document on Human Fraternity in the Catholic Church. The floor is yours.
The common wish of the signatories of the document of human fraternity, that is His Holiness Pope Francis and Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmad Al-Taib, was that this declaration, I quote, constitute an invitation to reconciliation and fraternity among all believers, indeed among believers and not believers, and among all people of goodwill. Pope Francis and Imam Al-Taib signed this document as believers and leaders of the two largest religious communities in the world, being aware that if there is no peace and reconciliation between Christians and Muslims, indeed between the believers of great religions, there will be no peace in the world. They understand the value of interreligious dialogue and are deeply involved in it. They signed this document in the name of God. My paper is divided into two parts. In the first part, I will extract from the entire document two ideas that, in my opinion, are particularly important. Then, in the second part, I will focus on some elements related to the reception of the document in the Catholic Church. Part 1. Some essential themes of the document on human fraternity. Although it is a short document, it contains many important themes which are worth to meditate on. In the introduction, there's a very simple and yet important confession. I quote, "From our fraternal and open discussions and from the meeting that expressed profound hope in a bright future for all human beings, the idea of this document on human fraternity was conceived." End of quote. I don't know exactly when the relationship between Pope Francis and Imam Ahmad Al-Taib began. I know, however, that their meeting in Abu Dhabi on the February 4th, 2019, when they signed the joint document, had been preceded by many other meetings. In other words, in order to take one big step forward, one must learn first how to take small steps. The steps, of course, can be taken forward and backward. If one takes a step backward, it might take some time to reverse the direction. Such a backward step in mutual relations was the unilateral freezing of dialogue with the Vatican by Al-Azhar University and the declination by Imam Ahmad Al-Taib of the invitation to participate in the Day of Reflection, Dialogue, and Prayer for Peace and Justice in the World in Assisi, organized by Benedict XVI in 2011. Along with the Islamic Research Council of Al-Azhar University, Grand Imam Ahmad Al-Taib argued at that time that the reason for freezing the dialogue with the Vatican was Pope Benedict's repeated criticism of Islam and his unjustified claim that Copts in Egypt and Christians in the Middle East were being persecuted. In 2015, Pope Francis established contact with Imam al-Taib, who visited the Pope in the Vatican in the very same year. The behind the scenes of their meeting and the breakthrough in contacts were revealed by Pope Francis himself on the board of the plane during his return flight from the apostolic visit to Bahrain on November 6, 2022. He said then that when in 2015 he met Imam al-Taib in the Vatican and was accompanied him to the exit just before leaving, he asked him, "Where are you going for lunch?" They decided to eat together. The Pope remembers it in the following way, I quote, "Then, sitting at the table, we took the bread, broke it, and gave it to each other, a gesture of friendship, offering the bread." End of quote. Of course, the document on human fraternity had not yet been created then, but with the gesture of breaking bread at a shared table, the institutional dialogue between the Vatican and Al-Azhar University was resumed. The next step was the apostolic journey of Pope Francis to Egypt in April 2017. An important element of this visit was a 2-day-long international peace conference at Al-Azhar University devoted to the issues of peace and interreligious dialogue. Let me conclude my comments on the above quoted sentence from the introduction to the document on human fraternity with the following statement. True dialogue can only arise on the basis of fraternal and open discussions. And this is precisely what the meetings between Pope Francis and Imam Ahmad al-Taib teach us. Now, I would like to say a few words about the content of the document on human fraternity. I want to underline 2 points. First, this document is written by 2 religious leaders and from a religious perspective. Second, it is an appeal to the world to put into practice the ideas and concepts contained in this declaration. My first point is that the most important characteristic of this document consists in its theological motivation, not political, nor even anthropological, but principally theological. And this is why many sentences in this declaration began by invoking the name of God. They start by saying, I quote, "In the name of God." The point to be underlined here is that Pope Francis and Imam al-Taib confess that despite the obvious theological differences between their 2 religions, there is a common ground, that is the belief in one God, creator of heaven and earth. This statement is very much in line with the teaching of the Catholic Church, beginning with the declaration on the relation of the Church to no Christian religions, Nostra Aetate, of the Second Vatican Council. Many documents could be quoted here in order to underpin this affirmation. Let me invoke just one, namely the address given by Pope John Paul II in Casablanca in August 1985. Speaking in the stadium to about 80,000 of young Muslims, he declared, I quote, "Christians and Muslims, we believe in the same God, the one God, the living God, the God who created the world and brings his creatures to their perfection." End of quote. I contend that this is also the perspective of the document on human fraternity signed in Abu Dhabi by Pope Francis and Imam Ahmad al-Taib. The second point which I would like to stress with regard to this document is its evident condemnation of any use of religion as justification for hatred, intolerance, acts of violence, and terrorism. One of the paragraphs is very explicit about it. I quote, terrorism is deplorable and threatens the security of people, be they in the East or in the West, the North or the South, and disseminates panic, terror, and pessimism. But this is not due to religion, even when terrorists instrumentalize it. End of quote. Let me now turn to the question of reception of this document within the Catholic Church. The document had a very positive resonance with many circles of the Catholic Church. First of all, we must mention the encyclical letter Fratelli Tutti. I will also note the Pluriel International Congress, which was held in February 2024 in Abu Dhabi on the theme Islam and Fraternity, Impact and Prospects of the Document. In our Polish environment, we can cite the Day of Islam in the Catholic Church in Poland, organized for the last 24 years on January 26th, at the end of the week of prayer for Christian unity. This said, one should not ignore the fact that in some other circles of the Catholic Church, the document has been heavily criticized. I am going to give two examples. According to some Catholic circles, by signing the document on human fraternity, Pope Francis compromised the doctrine of the Catholic Church. The sentence which raised the most controversy pertained to religious pluralism as willed by God. The document states, I quote, "The pluralism and the diversity of religions, color, sex, race, and language are willed by God in his wisdom, through which he created human beings." End of quote. Among those who had been shocked by this sentence was the auxiliary bishop of Astana in Kazakhstan, Bishop Athanasius Schneider. During his visit to the Vatican on March 1st, 2019, along with other bishops of Kazakhstan and Central Asia, he asked Pope Francis how to understand this sentence. Later on, in an interview given to LifeSite News, Bishop Schneider reported his conversation with Pope Francis. He said, I quote, "On the topic of my concern about the phrase used in the Abu Dhabi document that God wills the diversity of religions, the Pope's answer was very clear. He said that the diversity of religions is only the permissive will of God. He stressed this and told us, you can say this too, that diversity of religions is the permissive will of God." End of quote. I have no time to go deeply into the question. Let me just say that in 2021, I published an article entitled Religious Pluralism from the Catholic Point of View, where I argue that the above quoted passage from the document on human fraternity can be understood correctly from the Catholic point of view within the so-called inclusivist paradigm that recognizes and confers to the religious pluralism not only a permissive statute, but the statute de jure. And this is without jeopardizing the foundations of the Catholic faith, namely the unicity and salvific universality of Jesus Christ and the Church. Bishop Schneider is the representative of those who have criticized Pope Francis for signing the document on human fraternity. Unfortunately, he was not alone. As another example, one can mention the open letter to the bishops of the Catholic Church, signed by 20 Catholic theologians and published in Easter week 2019. They made a list of statements pulled out from the different documents of Pope Francis, which, according to their judgment, quote, are heretical, end of quote. One of the theme was the sentence quoted above from the document on human fraternity. However, there are many other Catholics, cardinals, bishops, theologians, priests, and lay people who applauded this document. Let us give a few examples. My first example is taken from our Polish environment. Since the year 2000, the Day of Islam in the Catholic Church in Poland has been celebrated on January 26th, at the end of the week of prayer for Christian unity. The two aspects which I would like to mention about this event are that, firstly, this year, in 2024, the theme of the Day of Islam in the Catholic Church in Poland was the reception of the document on human fraternity. Second, that the discourses given on that occasion by Cardinal Grzegorz Ryś from the Catholic side and by Mufti Tomasz Miśkiewicz from the Muslim side were very much in tune with the message of the document on human fraternity, which means that the religious authorities of both religions in Poland promote what Pope Francis and Imam Al-Taib inspire all of us to do. My second example was the event of international impact and importance. I would like to mention the International Congress, which was held in Abu Dhabi last February on the theme Islam and Fraternity, Impact and Prospects of the Document on Human Fraternity. The Congress was organized by the Pluriel, which is a university research platform on Islam in Europe and Lebanon, launched by the Federation of Catholic Universities. One of its main goals, which brought together 44 speakers from around 30 universities worldwide, along with 100 participants, was to break down the walls between research institutions in the Arab and Western worlds by providing a platform for dialogue and exchange of ideas on important issues related to intercultural and interreligious dialogue, such as human fraternity and peace. In his opening speech, Dr. Michel Younes, a general coordinator of Pluriel, said that one of the steps towards breaking down the walls between research institutions in the Arab and Western worlds was the introduction of the Arabic language as one of 3 official languages, besides French and English, of the Pluriel's conferences, webinars, and dissemination of the research undertaken by this institution. My third example is the encyclical letter Fratelli Tutti, published in 2020. In the order of importance, this is the most significant manifestation of the positive reception of the Abu Dhabi document within the Catholic Church. As we know, Pope Francis dedicated this encyclical letter to the great Imam Al-Taib. I would like to underline 2 ideas present in this encyclical letter. First, Pope Francis states directly that human fraternity is ultimately rooted in the fact that all human beings have been created by God as equal in rights, duties, and dignity. And he made it clear that this point was a pivotal argument in the document on human fraternity. Second, he reaffirms that the document signed in Abu Dhabi was not a mere diplomatic gesture, but a reflection born of dialogue and common commitment of himself as a leader of the Catholic Church and the Grand Imam Ahmad al-Taib as a leader of the Muslim community. This is to say that the document was the result of their mutual religious engagement and was rooted in their faith in God. Conclusion. We all know that documents alone are not enough to change the world and the way we look at others, especially those who are different. Nevertheless, documents, including the document on human fraternity, have the power to shape human hearts and minds and to inspire action. It seems to me that the two crucial places for implementing the content of this document are education and politics. If children and young people are brought up in the spirit of prejudice and ignorance towards others, and sometimes even the spirit of mistrust and hatred, and if the political discourses sustain and fuel such rhetoric, it will be difficult to implement the spirit of human fraternity in our religious communities and civil societies. First, education in the family, at school, in the religious communities, and political discourses can make a difference and contribute to the world becoming a place of peace and living together. This is what Pope Francis is talking about in the encyclical letter Fratelli Tutti. As many observers have rightly noticed, the document on human fraternity for world peace and living together, signed in Abu Dhabi, is something unprecedented. This document is a source of inspiration and at the same time a huge challenge for many institutions, organizations, political and religious leaders, and particularly from Catholics and Muslims. My wish is that we will continue to draw on this document in our academic work, as well as in our pastoral and social activities. Thank you for your attention.